How's it going, guys? So as you can see, we have our 3 brand new upright silos built. We're currently feeding triticale silage out of that far right silo. The other 2 are empty. We're going to be filling those with corn silage in the fall, so a couple months from now. We are on schedule to have the robot feeder running at that point then, once we get the corn harvested. I figured I'd take a little bit of time today to go through some of the common questions I've been getting lately about the silos and the robot feeding project. A lot of people have been asking, what are we going to be doing with the bunker silos? So we're not going to be filling them with silage anymore. The whole idea going with the upright silos is we can load the robot consistently with good feed from the uprights. As we got more serious about the robot feeding, really started thinking that upright silos would be the best fit for us. These bunker silos we built in 2004, so they're 20 years old this summer. At least the 2 on the left. That one there was built in the early 2010s. We were getting to the place where we needed to resurface the floors. Also, we need a little bit more capacity, either make them longer or wider. Kind of felt like if we want to go a different route, now would be the time to do it. It seemed like uprights would be the right choice for us for the robot feeding system. So rather than investing any more money in the bunks, we're gonna just stop filling them with silage. The walls are in pretty good shape because we always wrap plastic down to the floor when we're filling. But the floors have taken a beating because of all the silage juices. You see all the rocks in the concrete, but there's a lot of cracking, and yeah, this floor is really breaking down in the center bunker especially. We put the feed in pretty wet in the bunks, made a lot of juice, pretty hard on the floors. The silos, you're in the same boat. If you put the feed in too wet in those, we're gonna try to be careful to keep it dry, especially at the bottom. So the plan right now with them is to use one of the bays for manure storage. We'd really like to have a place we can pile dry manure over the summer and over the winter, and ideally we have a roof on it to keep it in the dry, out of the rain. At some point we are planning to put a roof on these bunks. We haven't looked into any options yet, haven't gotten pricing, so I don't know what it's going to cost. Some sort of hoop structure, like a fabric building, and just mount it on the wall there, go the whole way over top to there. That'd be 110 feet wide, so that's a pretty wide building. I think they can do it, but I don't know what it would cost. That's something for down the road. At this point, we're just gonna try to use them for storage or anything like that. Ideally, we could use this space to try and make some income. It would make a nice equipment storage area, but we don't have that much equipment we need to store. I don't know, if we could try to get some income with some sort of side business, or have some crazy ideas about running some beef cattle or something, we could feed them. We're gonna have the robot driving right through here, so if we could somehow set this up to feed beef cattle, we could easily feed them. I don't know if we have the capacity in the silos for extra feed, and I don't know if it's realistic to make that happen, but that's just an idea we had talked about down the road, possibly. I've heard they're getting really good feed efficiency on beef cattle with the Lely Vector system. Keep some of our Angus cross calves and raise them up to market weight, but I don't know, we'll see. That's a project for down the road, because right now we're focusing on getting this feeder working just for our dairy cows. We did think about making a shop in this area, just wasn't sure it's the best option for us because, well, for one thing, we want a nice floor in the shop, so we'd almost need to reconcrete anyway. These bays are so deep, you know, I don't really need a 130-foot deep shop, so I guess we could take the walls off the back side of one of the bays, and that could be equipment storage out the back, and then have a shop in the front. Yeah, that'd be an option too, potentially. I don't necessarily like the location as much for a shop, being in the back of the farm, right where the robot's gonna run through. Definitely would be something to consider. If we did put a hoop structure up, that wouldn't really be great for a shop. You'd have to put a ceiling inside of it or something. A lot of people have also asked about the houses in our bunker silo. That's my cousin's. He's working on getting them moved, so they're not gonna be here too much longer. So we're gonna be installing the feed room in our current shop, and the reason we chose that space was because it's really the ideal location. It's right between, we got our dry cow and heifer barns down there, and the main dairy barn up here. It really made the most sense of all the spots. We thought about putting it up here somewhere near the bunks, or even back in this area. The downside with this is if we ever wanted to expand the dairy barn, either lengthen it or build something out that direction, then it could be in the way potentially. We have no intentions of expanding, but we want to be able to do that in the future if we want to. We decided to use the shop because we already have that structure there. It's the right size room for the robot feed room. So we're gonna have to move our current shop. What our plan is, we have this little shed out front that we don't use for too much. I'll show you guys what it looks like. Our plan is to move everything from the shop into this building. We ran electric from the parlor, if you remember last month. We also ran power this direction right here. We didn't have power in this building. Trailer won't be staying in here anymore. We want to get some concrete poured on the floor, and then we can start moving stuff in. So the biggest downside with this building is just the ceiling height. It's maybe 10 feet. For us, most of the value of having a shop is just a place we can organize our tools. We can bring the Kubota RTV in here, throw tools in the back of it, go work on something. Just working on little things we need a shop bench for, little welding jobs. We don't have a lot of jobs where we're bringing big equipment into the shop and spending a lot of time. So this room, we can do everything except work on the corn planter or tractors. Figure we can make it work. We're gonna use our old shop for the feed room, and then we're gonna make this work for our workshop for a while, and then down the road, if we wanna do something different, we can. Depending on the farm shop is very valuable for us. We don't do a lot of mechanic work. We just need to have a place to organize the tools and stuff. And this location is really nice because it's very close to the milking parlor, close to everything. We're always in and out of the shop grabbing tools, so I think there will be some nice things about that. We're gonna have more videos on that in there. We're gonna have to pour concrete in the next few weeks, and then we can start moving our stuff in. Down the road, we could potentially put a nice shop in a bunk or build something new. I don't know. We don't really have plans for that. A shop is not the biggest need for us. We weren't too worried about giving this building up because this shop's a little bit too small anyway. We can't really get our corn planter in here. We got to take the marker arms off of it every time. And even when it is in here, it's pretty tight. We can hardly get around it. Can't get anything else in. That building will work pretty good. We'll be able to get skid loader in there, pickup truck, anything like that can fit in there to be worked on. When we do want to work on the corn planter, we'll just have to work in this shed. It's where we park it. Maybe not do it in the middle of winter when it's freezing. We did think about setting up a shop in this area. I don't really like the location for it. We did consider keeping that shop and then building a feed room right here beside it. That was another option. There was a couple reasons we didn't like that so much. Another question I get is, what are we doing with our old silos? Plan is to just get them torn down. We're talking to some different people about getting them removed. They're going to be able to rebuild them somewhere else. The silos themselves aren't really worth any money. I think we can get them removed for free. The unloaders we can get something for, especially the one harvester bottom unloader. Should be a net gain getting rid of all that. Those silos, all four of them combined, don't hold as much as one of the big boys. It's a lot more messing around for a lot less feed. We didn't really want to build the robot room around those just because the location wasn't the best. It was another couple 100 feet more that the robot feeder would have to drive up to the main barn. Didn't really know where we could build our other silos here to make it all work. Just decided we're done with the old silos. We're gonna move on. It will be really nice because my house is back there. It's kind of surrounded by the silos. So getting those out of there, it's gonna feel a lot more open in my backyard. And then this space here, this is just, I call it the land of opportunity. In the future, whatever we want to build, if we want to build a shop or who knows what, transition barn for young heifers, or put a, I don't know, think of some other options. Put a McDonald's franchise in here, whatever we want to do, we got space. So then as far as the new silos, one question I'll get is, what in the world are you guys thinking? Who builds 132 foot tall silos? Who wants to climb them? I had talked a little bit about why we chose this size a while back, but the main reason we went so tall is because we really wanted to be able to get all the triticale in one silo. We chose 24 foot diameter silos because the spring forage crop, which is what we're feeding out of this one right now with our temporary conveyor going up there, that we're only feeding about 3 tons, 3.5 tons a day. So if you build a 30 foot diameter silo, you can't keep it fresh enough. You're not gonna be taking enough inches off a day. We like to feed at least 3 inches off of it or something to keep that feed fresh so it never spoils on top. The spring forage silo was the first one we decided on. And then we started thinking maybe we want a silo for our corn silage as well, because we really felt like upright silos for robot feeding is the way to go. We had originally priced out a 30 by 132 for silage. That would hold about 3,000 tons in one silo. And I did visit someone that has silos that big. It's pretty impressive. Multiple people advised us to stick with the 24 foot diameter silos instead of going any bigger. They just don't pack quite as hard. It's easier on unloaders. It's a crazy tall silo for only being 24. It feels like it should be wider. Yeah, we think the 24 foot unloaders are gonna be nicer to us in the long run. And we really liked having 3 identical silos because right now we're feeding out of this silo, the spring forage. This fall we're gonna fill these 2 with silage. One of these 2 will be empty by the end of February or March, and so next spring we can fill the empty one with our spring crop again. Let's say this silo still has 10 feet left in it. We can feed that for a month, cover this silo, let it ferment, and then transition over to that silo once that one's completely empty. It'll make harvest days a lot easier because the robot feeder will be able to continue to run. We won't have to shut it off to harvest, and we can just focus on filling a silo. If we have to shut the robot feeder off, start filling, takes 12 hours to harvest. and it's late at night. Well, now we got to go set the unloader up right away so we can feed out of that silo so the cows can get feed. That just sounds like a stressful day. It seemed to me that 3 identical silos would be something we'd really appreciate. We think we can make better feed out of a 24 footer than a 30. A little bit more grace there for filling. We don't need to get it quite as dry on the bottom of a 24 because it just doesn't pack quite as hard. That weight kind of transfers out to the walls of the silo. Doesn't pack the feed quite as hard as a 30 footer. Some people are asking why we didn't put bottom unloading silos in, like our blue silos over there. They make a lot bigger ones of those. And the nice thing with those is you gotta climb up to open the lid at first. Fill it up, you close the lid, and then everything's fed out of the bottom unloaders. It's a whole lot less climbing. There's definitely some nice things about that. The one downside with those bottom unload silos is they cost more. Just that alone is enough to make it hard to justify for me. We've always preferred the stave silos there on the right, the top unloading silos. Yeah, it's a little more work, but the unloader sits on top of the feed. If something does break, you can actually get to the unloader. If you have an issue in one of the bottom unload silos, you can't even get in there to try and fix something, and it's very expensive to fix them. These bottom unloaders just cost a lot to maintain. These chains, very expensive. There's the bottom chain that pulls the feed out, and then there's the top chain that has the knives on it. It cuts through the feed. Yeah, if you get the feed dry enough and everything's maintained well, they don't wear out as fast. But another thing I don't like about these silos is if you do get the feed too wet, then you'll get juices running straight out of the unloader. I think throws off your feeding consistency a little bit. If the robot calls for 100 pounds of silage and you get some juice with it, then it's not gonna have the right amount of feed. It's gonna get some extra moisture. So that side of it too seems to matter to me. So these stave silos, these are pre-poured sections of concrete. They fit together, and then they put these metal bands around them to hold everything. It's a pretty common style of silo to see. They're a little bit quicker to build. They're lower cost. We went with the poured silos because you're able to build them a lot taller. They're stronger, hold up better long term if you're going to go that big. So those have rebar inside the concrete. A lot of people were saying they can't imagine having to climb these silos. I really don't mind climbing. It's not that bad. When you fill them, you got to climb to the top, check how full they're getting. Then once you get them filled, the initial settling brings it down some, and then every door you're changing, you're getting lower into the silo. You're not climbing the whole way up. Bunker silos are nice. You don't have to climb as much, but I wouldn't say they're low labor. A well-managed bunker takes a lot of effort. When you're filling, we got to roll plastic out on the walls beforehand and pulling plastic up, covering with tires. And then every week we got to go through and cut the plastic back. And when we got spoilage on top of a bunk, we're forking off mold in the corners or on top during the summer. The silos, I feel like we're going to have cleaner feed. That's one of the reasons that I don't mind a little bit of climbing, is if we have better feed, cleaner feed, more consistent for the cows, it's worth a little bit of climbing to me. So it's not that you can't make great feed out of bunker silos. I do think we're going to be able to have a little more consistency, a little bit more clean feed out of these uprights. I'm sure a lot of you have seen our harvest videos. We're very uptight about getting every detail right that we possibly can on the bunkers when we're filling, packing, covering. It's definitely a lot of labor. You can't say that bunks are easy and low labor. They take a ton of work. Once you're getting to a bigger farm, if you're milking 1,000 cows, upright silos, it's not really a great option at that point. But for a small to medium-sized farm like us, I think these uprights are gonna serve us pretty well. That's how we feel about it. From my experience, there's no easy, convenient, cheap, great, all-around way to store forages. If you're gonna try to ensile feed, it's just a battle. You're either dealing with ag bag plastic, some of the headaches with that, or bunker silos, they have issues. Upright silos, you gotta climb up, work on unloaders. There's just no perfect method. Everybody has to choose what's best for them. There's a lot of great dairies that use all of those different options and do very well with it. So I'm not saying bunks can't work, but I think when you're talking robot feeding, to be able to turn that unloader on with the flip of a switch and have a consistent flow of feed coming out of a conveyor into the robot, it can turn it off when it wants to. That's hard to beat, I think, for feed freshness. I know guys do it other ways, and it works. We're definitely excited about the silos. We think they're going to pay. So as far as how much they cost, the silos we had built by Sullenberger Silos. They're out of Chambersburg, PA. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description. You can check that out. It's got some of the silos they built on there and sort of their sales pitch you can check out. As far as cost for these silos, we spent right about $150,000 per silo, including the footer, concrete, and everything. It's a really big cost, and that was the biggest cost of this project, not the robot. Once we decided to do silos, it definitely made it a bigger deal. I was first convinced of the robots, and then started realizing that we need to go upright silos from day one. We believe that the upright silos will put the feeding system in the best position to be successful and allow that thing to be as efficient as possible. It's kind of built around that robot feeder. We estimate the whole system should pay for itself within 10 years, including the upright silos. Now the robot itself, if you could put that in without any other type of storage structure, it'd be faster. I should sometime go into the numbers a little more in detail, kind of explain our thought process and how we think it's going to pay. There's kind of two aspects of it. There's, how quickly will it pay for itself? And then there's also, can we afford kind of the worst case scenario where we don't see some of the advantages that we're hoping to see with the robot feeder? Can our farm still afford to pay for these silos? And we felt comfortable with the risk we're taking. The other advantage is I got the YouTube channel, got that as a little bit of a hedge too, so it's at least entertaining for you guys whether or not it works for us. We're definitely not the first farm to go this route though. In a couple of years I'll be able to tell you better if this was a good decision. At this point we're excited and we're still feeling good about it. Another question I've gotten is, are we going to be able to expand the dairy with this setup? Or is this kind of limiting how many cows we can milk in the future? The robot feeder we're putting in, we're actually going to be getting 2 units. We're just a little bit too big and spread out for one Lely Vector feeder to cover everything. With 2 of them, they're going to be about 55 to 60% of their capacity. That'll be nice because if we do have a little issue and we're behind, we can get caught up pretty quickly having 2 feeders running. We should be able to add some cows in the future and still feed them with this robot. Now we might have to add another silo or something to make sure we have enough capacity for the feed. We should have more capacity than we need with these 3 silos with our current setup. If we want to feed some beef cattle or something, it would be no trouble for the robot to have time to run feed out to them in the bunk area there, as well as all the cows and everything. For the situation we're in with the limited land available, we felt that a system like this is going to help us to get a lot more efficient, hopefully get better performance out of the cows. So rather than spending the money on an expansion project, we're spending it on just improving what we have. Today's June the 14th. We have our excavator scheduled for the end of June. We're going to dig some drain boxes in to run water. It's going to be pooling in this area more. We need to get water out. 4 different boxes that need buried and then piping. So we got to get that done. And then we have guys coming to do concrete. We're going to pour a concrete path. Basically, up there to the left, it'll go right along the front of the bunks. There'll be a path that goes up to the special needs and then one that goes way out to the freestall. That needs to be done by the end of July because the robots will be showing up July 30th, I believe is the date for delivery. Before the end of July, we want to have the shop cleared out. And once we get the concrete done over there, we can set up our new shop. Then the end of July, they're going to bring the robots, get them installed, get the routes all set up, and then we'll know exactly where it's going to park here to fill. So then the middle or end of August, we're going to work on getting our conveyors up. We got one from each of the silos. We got a conveyor from a forage wagon for hay through that wall. Got to get the electricians here to run power to all the different motors. And then for our grain ingredients, we're going to be pouring a concrete pad right here. It's just going to be between these 2 openings. And we're going to be putting 5 grain bins in. They're a plastic bin. 3 14-ton bins, and then 2 that hold about 4 tons, and that's going to hold all of our grain ingredients. So we're going to have flex augers from those running in to the robot. Everything's on schedule. We got a lot of stuff we need to make happen, but we don't feel too stressed about it. We have time yet. It's nice we have the silos built. That part of it's done. We can work at getting the drain lines in and concrete and everything. There's also some other little details. We need to get water into this building in case we want to be able to put it in our feed ration. So we're probably going to be putting a hydrant in. We got to bring water in from the outside there. So we'd like to have everything set up by mid-September. And at that point, we can fill the silos with silage. Hopefully get the robot feeding system actually running, mixing feed. I have a lot of confidence in the Lely Vector. Those things are very reliable from what we're hearing at driving their route and doing all their jobs. It's really just that connection between the Vector and our equipment, like the conveyors and the unloaders and everything. We got to get that stuff all dialed in. But guys have done it, and it seems to be working well on other farms. I'm confident, but it's definitely going to be a little bit of a battle getting everything working properly. So once everything's rolling, we're going to be done mixing feed. We'll be able to sell our TMR mixer. We're not going to keep that thing around. That's a little update on the project. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. Keep letting me know if you have questions. I'll try to answer them in future videos. Another question I just thought of is, aren't we worried about the shade on the barns back here, since these silos are on the south side of these buildings? So this is our dry cow barn, and actually with dry cows, having some shade on their building is not a bad thing. It'll help keep it a little bit cooler. Now in the winter time, we will be getting some shade back there on our heifer barn in the mornings. That barn already was kind of blocking that building in the early morning, so I'm not sure it's going to be any worse than it was. But the nice thing will be, we'll be removing those silos, and actually after lunch on a winter day. Those silos are blocking the sun on that barn all afternoon. We should actually end up with more sun, more hours of the day on the heifer barn with getting rid of those old silos. Okay guys, that'll be it for this video. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.